Every legend begins not with applause, but with doubt. For this coach, doubt was a constant companion. He had never been a superstar player, never lifted golden boots or trophies. He came from football's grey zone, hard-working, overlooked, underestimated. And yet, that very background made him dangerous, because he had nothing to lose except his last chance. In a small town, he learned football not from books, but on dusty pitches. There, football was not glamour, it was survival. Whoever held the ball was kicked. Whoever stood still, lost. The game taught him early, there is no safety, only risk. He was an observer, quiet, often on the edge. While others spoke of dribbles, he studied movements, patterns, spaces. As a teenager, he scribbled sketches on scraps of paper. His friends laughed. "You want to be a coach? There's no glory in that!" But glory was never the goal. Control was. As a player, he never made it to the elite. Injuries, lack of pace, limited physique. The list was long. But he studied the game like a science. He spent hours replaying matches on tape, rewinding until the screen cracked. He read books on psychology, communication, leadership. He wanted to understand why some coaches ignited players and others lost them. By his mid-20s, he coached a youth team. No salary, barely spectators, but it was his first stage. There he learned the key truth. Tactics mean nothing without trust. Early defeats. The rise was no fairy tale. His first senior teams lost games they should have won. The press mocked him. Tactics professor without practice. Players complained about endless meetings, about his obsession with drawings. But he didn't let go. Defeats weren't buried, they were dissected. He asked, why? Where was the mistake? Was it him or the team? Years later, when he finally earned a job at a big club, his reputation was fixed. Nerd. A man of numbers, not emotions. Fans looked at him on the sideline, thin, nervous, notebook in hand. They wanted roaring leaders. Instead, they got a man who scribbled. But the notebook was his weapon. Inside were not only formations, but notes on fear, on pressure, on courage. Because he knew, tactics win matches, psychology wins careers. His team stood at the edge. Weeks of defeats, a divided crowd, a board already whispering about replacements. Headlines read, "One more game and he's gone." For the players, he was temporary. For him, it was the last stand. He felt it in every press question, in every skeptical glance from the president. 90 more minutes, and his career could be over. But under pressure, he found clarity. The night before the decisive match, he didn't sleep. Instead, he walked through the empty stadium, listening to his own footsteps. He imagined the voices, boos, chants, criticism, and then he imagined silence turning into thunder. He knew only one risky move could change everything. A safe plan might buy him a day, but not a future. So he prepared the one move that could cost everything or win it all. The morning of the match looked ordinary to outsiders, but for him, every breath felt heavier, as if the air itself was testing him. Inside the locker room, silence ruled. Players tied their boots, avoiding his eyes. They knew their coach was standing with his back against the wall, and so were they. Many thought, if we lose, he's gone, we'll get a new man. But he thought, if we lose, it's over, not just for me, but for us. He placed a single sheet of notes on the table. Not many pages, just one. He had flipped the system upside down. No more standard, no more safety. Instead of the expected formation, he lined up his team in a structure no one saw coming. Reporters had whispered, "He won't be crazy enough to try this, will he?" But that was exactly what he was. He shifted a player into a position never seen before, a choice that broke every conventional rule. If it worked, he would be a genius. If it failed, he would be a fool. In the final meeting, he stood in front of his players. Normally, he spoke about tactics, about spaces. This time, he spoke about courage. "You believe we have no chance," he told them. "But they believe the same. That is our weapon. Silence, nervous glances between players. Then he continued. Today we risk it all, not because we must, but because we can. He struck his fist on the table. We play as if there is no tomorrow. The whistle blew. At once, everyone sensed something different. Movements felt unusual. The rhythm disoriented the opponent. Commentators were confused. What is he trying? Fans in the stands murmured, shaking their heads. Then, the first attack. A pass into a zone usually empty. The opponent caught off guard. Shot just wide. Only a chance, but it changed everything. Suddenly, his players believed. But football punishes. In the 20th minute, the opponent struck, 0-1. Boos poured from the crowd. Cameras zoomed on his face, still but burning inside. Was it a mistake? He wondered for seconds. But he forced himself to calm down. He knew a plan needed time. He walked to the sideline, clapping, shouting. For the first time, he looked like a man without doubt. Minutes before half-time, a fast attack. The player in the new position sprinted into space. Pass, shot, goal! 1-1. The stadium exploded. The camera caught his face. No wild celebration, just a short glance upward. He knew this was only the beginning. But psychologically, it was much more. Belief returned, and belief spreads fast. As the second half began, the opponent looked unsettled. They couldn't read the system. Their order collapsed. His team grew bolder. Every touch lighter, every pass sharper. A second goal felt inevitable. Then, in the 71st minute, the same player, the same space. Shot! Goal! 2-1! The stadium shook, and for the first time, the fans chanted his name. But 20 minutes remained. He knew now came the true test. The opponent attacked relentlessly, wave after wave. Every shot was a heartbeat. On the bench, his fists clenched, but his face stayed cold. His players looked to him for strength and found it. 90 minutes, final whistle, 2-1, victory. The roar was deafening. His players embraced him as if they had never doubted. Reporters stormed forward. Was it luck or genius? He answered simply. It was courage. The next morning, headlines changed tone. Yesterday, one more game and he's gone. Today, the man with the brilliant move. Yet he knew this was only the first battle. The war was far from over. The victory changed everything, and yet nothing. To the players, he suddenly became more than a coach. To the fans, a symbol of hope. But in the boardroom, skepticism lingered. A lucky strike, they muttered. A single win, they thought, could still be an accident. The press applauded, but with hesitation. Genius or gambler? The headlines asked. Nobody knew the answer, yet. Match after match revealed the truth. His system was no coincidence. Opponents who usually dominated looked helpless. His players ran harder, passed sharper, fought stronger. It was as if the team had been reprogrammed. But with every victory, expectation grew. Fans demanded more. Media waited for cracks. Success brings light and envy. He knew success rewires minds. Players who doubted yesterday now wanted the spotlight. Egos swelled, tensions rose. A careless word could shatter the fragile unity. So he spoke more often but differently. Not about tactics, but about trust. You are not the heroes, he told them. The system is the hero. With every interview, his name grew louder. But fame is a double-edged sword. Reporters began setting traps. Are you the new Messiah? They asked, hoping for arrogance. He stayed calm. I'm only a coach, he replied. But humility too made him vulnerable. Then came the stumble. A weaker opponent, a harmless attack, and suddenly 0-1. His players looked at him for answers. But this time, no turnaround came. A defeat. The press pounced instantly. System exposed? plan cracked. One night, and the doubts returned. That night, he filled pages in his notebook. Every error, every misplaced pass, every failed idea. But deeper than the analysis was the question, was it luck? Am I really more? His inner critic screamed louder than any journalist. The next day, he stood in front of the team. He smiled as if nothing had happened, yet in his eyes burned the fear of losing it all. The next match became a trial. Would his system hold or collapse? The first minutes were chaos. Nervous touches, sloppy passes, nearly a goal conceded. Then, a move straight from his notebook, 1-0. His players didn't just celebrate, they believed again. Final score, 3-1. Victory. To fans, it was a match. To him, it was rebirth. But rival coaches weren't blind. They studied every detail, preparing traps. Double marking, shifted lines, early pressing schemes. Everyone tried to destroy the miracle cure. But he adapted. Small tweaks, subtle shifts, always one step ahead. For now, with each win, the demands rose higher. Players pushed for contracts. The board pushed for trophies. He felt the weight. Victory was no longer a gift, it was duty. Nights grew shorter, thoughts darker. On paper, he stood at the top. Inside, he stood at the edge. Still, he had become more than a coach. To fans, he was courage itself. Children wore shirts with his name. Newspapers printed his quotes. The outsider had become an icon. But he knew, symbols are fragile. One mistake, and they turn from hero to betrayer. He had to prove his path was more than a moment. Still, he had become more than a coach. He had to prove his season reached its breaking point. His team had risen from mediocrity, but now they faced the giants, the empire that had crushed them for years. The board whispered, "One loss and he's done." The media sharpened their knives, waiting for the kill. He walked into the empty stadium the night before. Shadows of past defeats lingered in the seats. Ghosts of boos and banners calling for his resignation. But he looked at the grass and saw something else. Possibility. This was not fear. This was the stage for a gamble. He knew safe choices would keep him alive for one more week, but survival without victory meant nothing. So he prepared the one move. The one that could destroy his career or make him immortal. On match day, the world noticed something strange. The lineup sheets confused analysts. A defender playing in midfield. A winger moved inside. Chaos to the critics, a masterpiece to him. He heard the laughter. Pundits mocked him on live television. "This is suicide," one expert declared. He didn't blink. In the locker room, players were anxious. "Coach, are you sure?" they asked. He looked each of them in the eye. "Not sure," he said. "Certain." He explained not just the moves, but the why. They expect us to fear. They expect us to wait. Instead, we strike. When they stepped onto the pitch, they weren't just following a tactic. They were following a dare. The whistle blew. The Empire charged forward. For 10 minutes, it looked like disaster. Passes went astray, pressure mounted. Fans groaned, the board squirmed in their seats. Cameras zoomed on his face, searching for panic. But he stood calm, hands in pockets. He had rehearsed these minutes in his mind 100 times. Then it happened. A turnover, a sudden burst. His winger turned striker, sprinting through the middle. Shot, goal, 1-0. The stadium erupted. The plan was alive. The Empire fought back, scoring to equalize. 1-1. Doubt returned like thunderclouds. But then his unorthodox defender in midfield threaded a pass no one expected. It split the lines. His striker finished 2-1. He didn't celebrate. He simply pointed to his head, reminding his team, focus. 90 minutes later, the whistle blew. Final score, 2-1. The gamble had worked. The empire was beaten. The coach who risked everything had won it all. The next morning, headlines screamed across the world. Madman or mastermind? Genius risk pays off. The coach who changed football in one night. Players praised him as visionary. Rivals studied him in silence. For fans, he was no longer the outsider with a notebook. He was the man who dared and conquered. He knew more challenges would come, more battles, more doubts. But this night, this move was his proof. Proof that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action in spite of it. Now listen closely. You just witnessed a coach risk it all and win everything. But football never ends. The story continues in you, in your memory, in your judgment. Tell us, was it courage or madness? Drop your answer below. And if you want to be part of the next great story, subscribe to KICKSPLOSION_TV. The next unforgettable chapter begins soon.